Okay, what is up, everybody? The 2020 season has ended. The Lakers are the reigning champions right now, and I'm here to give you guys my top 10 players of the NBA postseason, of the NBA bubble, of the season in general. Because if you're a top 10 player, then you made it to the playoffs. So this is just kind of a 2020 bubble 2020 just NBA season top 10 list. All right. And I wanted to wait until the end of the finals to do this because there's a couple of players who I thought could move up, could move down, and yeah, and a couple of players did move up, and a couple of players did move down. As opposed to how my list would have been, um, just on like when did the season get postponed? I think like February or March. Like if I did this in February or March, there would be a lot of players who had differing spots on this list. So to start it off, I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. Also, um, like players who didn't play a lot of the season or who only played a few games and stuff are just automatically like exempt from the list. Curry, Durant, Clay, which Clay's not a top 10 player in the first place, but you know, if he was, he wouldn't be on the list. Durant not on the list. Curry not on the list. Kyrie's not on the list either, which I don't think he's a top 10 player, but he's not on the list. He's just been injured too much. So if you were injured for a lot of the season, you're just automatically exempt from it. Um, and so yeah, let's just get straight into it. And at number 10, I have probably the hottest take of the list. After number 10, everybody should agree with just about everything I say. But at number 10, I have Donovan Mitchell, actually. Um, and why is he here? Well, first of all, he proved in the regular season that he could play ball really well as a shooting guard. I believe he averaged something around 25, 5, and 5. Um, and he was just able to, I don't want to say he was able to get the job done because he wasn't. He did blow a 3-1 lead, but in that series, he's played really well. He had some really high scoring games, which is something that you have to do when you're a number one option on a playoff team. And for him to be, I think he was the fifth. I think they were the fifth seed, right? Because the or was or were they the okay? So Denver was the second seed, so that means they were the sixth seed, I think, or was the Clippers the I think this was the 3-5 matchup. So yeah, I think they were the fifth seed, and for you to be the fifth seed and play as well as you do, um, you know what I'm saying? Just I think says a lot about his ability as a player. He has a really good inside game. He has a really good outside game. He can score on any you know part of the floor. He can pass really well. He has good handles. He can defend. The dude really kind of does it all, and if he can step up one specific aspect of his game, I think he's one. I think he's literally one, like attribute away from being a superstar player in this league. Which you might say that he already is because I have him at 10th. But yeah. Now the player who would have went here would have been Joel Embiid. I kind of just knocked him out just because of his super poor performance in the playoffs. Um, without having Ben Simmons, you know what I'm saying. So he had nothing that could have like weighed him down. Um, and yeah, he was just super, super underwhelming. So yeah, Joel doesn't get the 10th spot. Um, but yeah, moving on to number 9, I've got who, in my opinion, the best center in the league. Which obviously AD exists, and he plays center too. But he prefers to play power forward, so that's what I'm kind of listing him as. But at the center position, just pure center, I think the best player in the league is going to be Nikola Jokic, and that's who I have at my number 9 spot. And he just really proved that he was the best center in the league. I still thought Joel Embiid was better than him up until what was it? Well, like the playoffs, up until the playoffs. Um, because Joel gets bounced the first round. Jokic makes it to the Western Conference Finals, which is a really big deal. And this also goes back to Donovan Mitchell too, because Jokic all makes it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, playing on a better team than Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell was the number one option on that Utah Jazz team, and he makes it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, and they went to 7 games with each other. So I mean, that kind of says to me that this Nuggets team, the Jazz team, and the Clippers teams were all pretty comparable. You know what I'm saying? And so I guess just because of that, I can't really put anybody above either of these two players. Who were on other teams who didn't make the playoffs and kind of things like that. So that's why they take up 9 and 10. But yeah, Jokic is essentially he's a big man who can score just about anywhere. He hits some dagger threes. He has this goofy mid-range pull-up shot. He has some hooks. Um, he can rebound really well and he can pass really well. He's a really good passing big man. And he always is able to draw a bunch of gravity towards him to create for his teammates because of the fact that he has all these offensive options. And so, yeah, that's why Jokic is at number 9. And at number 8, I'm gonna have Jimmy Butler. Now, Jimmy Butler's a very weird player to rank because you can't look at his stats really. Um, and like if you do, like they aren't gonna tell the full story because Jimmy Butler's a guy who just wants to. Jimmy Butler is a winning player. He's a winning basketball player. And just purely at heart, Jimmy Butler just wants to win the game of basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like there, of course, you have players like Harden, Westbrook, etc., who like to pad stats and stuff like that, and show off and do things like that. But Jimmy Butler is just different. He just purely wants to play the game of basketball and get his work in. Like that's just purely all he wants to do. He just wants to win, and he's willing to do whatever his team needs him to do in order to win, and that's what separates him from the rest. And even though he only averaged like 18 points during the season or whatever, he cranks out during the playoffs, and you're able to see what type of player he really is. Um, you know, because the playoffs kind of just show what type of they show what each individual player is really made of. You know what I'm saying? And with Jimmy Butler being able to have the time in between like games and all that to, kind of study his the enemy team and get everything prepped and stuff. It just proves that when it matters, he can show up. If you're going to play really good defense for the night, then he can do that, and you can win that way. You know what I'm saying? If you need him to facilitate and get Goran Dragic or Bam Adebayo or Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson open looks and get those players going, then he can do that. You know what I'm saying? I would say he's primarily a facilitator, to be honest. At least at this point in his career. If you need him to hit a dagger three, he can do that too. You know what I'm saying? Even though he shies away from the 3 point. But yeah, he can do that. And Joel Embiid, not Joel Embiid, sorry, Jimmy Butler. If you ask me, he's like just an all-around better version of Ben Simmons. You know what I'm saying? He's just better than Ben Simmons at every single aspect of the game. He can shoot threes, not well, but he can shoot them if he needs to, and he won't shy away from taking that shot. He won't shy away from the big moment. He can create really well for his teammates, um, and he has an extremely better inside game. I think Jimmy Butler might, like aside from LeBron, I think Jimmy Butler might have the best inside game in the game, and probably pretty up there with the best mid range, sort of game too. Um, I really only Kawhi's like going with this guy as far as mid range game, and so yeah, I talked enough about Jimmy Butler. That's why I have him where he is. I would have had him at 9 because I was thinking about making this video before the finals, and after the finals, he is able to drop 40 points. He's able to prove that he can be that guy if he needs to be. And after that, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, yeah, Jimmy Butler's definitely a top 8 player at least. And so that's where I have him. He's arguably better than number 7 too. I was going back and forth. Who's going to be Damian Lillard? In my opinion, this is the best point guard in the game right now. And I think when Curry comes back, he'll still be the best. Uh, Damian Lillard, that is. I think Damian Lillard will be the best point guard when Curry comes back. I don't think anyone's moving on from this position. He's just an amazing scorer. He does everything offensively. I don't even need to really talk about this. If he was a better defender, then he would be probably just the ideal point guard. But yeah, he can pull up from anywhere. Has a good mid-range game. Has a good inside game. He can pass well. He's a little bit short, but I mean, whatever. Um, Damian Lillard is just, man, he's just that guy. there's nothing else that I can really say. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, I mean he's able to drop 40 and 50 if you need him to. Dame is just that guy. And so next we got Harden. And Harden's also like this 6, 7, and 8 spot. Like you can kind of interchange like all of them in my opinion. Um, because I feel like Harden is arguably worse than Dame. And I feel like if you want to make the argument for James Harden not being a winning basketball player and saying that Jimmy Butler is better than him because of that, I feel like you could. Because Jimmy Butler can do whatever his team needs him to do to win. James Harden can't. He's just molded into a system, and he's the number one option in that system, even though he might not need to be. And because of that, that's just very limiting in James Harden's ability to be a winning player. And I don't think he's a winning player at all. I think he's just pure basketball skill, just molded into a player with a big ass beard. You know what I'm saying? That's what James Harden is. He's just pure skill. But he's very inconsistent. Like he'll have these duds of games where he'll go for like 5 or 10 points, which is not gonna work on the Rockets team that's built around him. And so it's really hard for me to like James Harden's another player who's really hard to be like, okay, he's this good or this good or that good, because of the fact that you could argue that his strengths are because of the system that he's built in, and you could also argue that all of his weaknesses are because of the team and the system that he's like built in. You know what I'm saying? Like you could be like, yeah, he's not that good of a facilitator, and he's a losing basketball player because his teammates can't hit open jump shots. You can say both of those things and they're kind of valid, each in their own right. You know what I'm saying? You could say James Harden has to do everything or whatever, and he's really good at shooting threes. He's the number one option on this fourth seed Western Conference team. You know what I'm saying? He's an amazing player. And then at the same time, you can say, okay, but he's this amazing player, but he goes for 5 and 10 on some games. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just kind of an anomaly of a player, and yeah. But I feel like he's too good to place anywhere lower than than where I've put him for this season, and yeah. And so now I'm gonna make a lot of people angry because I have Giannis at 5. Um, and this is just purely based off of his playoff performance. Because he's a great regular season player, but there's no regular season award. You don't get an award for being the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. Like, I'm sorry, it's already an easier conference, and for two things, you don't get anything out of it. He gets bounced in the second round. I can't like if you're the number one player in the league, if you're the MVP and the defensive player of the year, then I cannot give you any leeway at all. You have to make it past the second round. Like I can't put you any higher than number 5. I'm sorry. And this is gonna sound hypocritical with what I'm gonna say coming up. But yeah, like Giannis he just is lacking certain areas of the game. He needs to play center probably. Would be my best like guess for how he should play or who he should be in the league. Because man, oh man, I don't this guy. like I want to like Giannis so bad, but he just all the shit talking and just he does never back it. He never backs it up. It's yeah, it's problematic. And so yeah, like I said, this is gonna be really hypocritical. With what I'm about to say about this number 4 slot player. Um, but you could also interchange 4 and 5. They're really close. And my number 4 player is gonna be Luka. Okay, it's gonna be Luka Doncic. All right. Now, I hear you typing angrily. You know what I'm saying? Luka's the 6th seed. Luka's, he gets bounced in the first round. Giannis at least made it out of the first round. Yada yada yada. Yeah, I know. Okay. My excuses for Luka are the fact that one, he's on a much worse team than the Bucks. The Bucks are a good overall team. They have Chris Middleton. They have Bledsoe, who's a good guy in the regular season. They have Brooke Lopez. They have that white boy whose name I can't remember. Like they have a wait, do they have Kyle Korver too, don't they? Yeah. So I mean, like they have a lot of good role players on that team, which is why they're the number one seed. This Mav team has like Porzingis, Luka, and like Seth Curry. Like maybe one guy I'm forgetting, but for the most part, that's really it. And so because of that, it feels like Luka's more just as important to his team as Giannis is. Not only that, he's the sixth seed or seventh seed in the West. Um, which is nothing to brag about. It's nothing to go home about. But this Mavs team went 6 games with the Clippers, who were the favorites to win it all this year. And that's my main reason for putting them up this high. For one thing, obviously the dagger that he hit to get them to 6 games, but really just the abilities of Luka and his performances. Like he can drop 40, he can drop 30, 10, and 10. He's a triple double machine. This guy really just does it all. He just really does it all. He has some really high scoring games, and on a not too good team either. You know what I'm saying? And the Mavs may have won that series if Porzingis didn't get shittily ejected, for that BS call. So I don't know, man. I think it's pretty hard to not give Luka his props. And I think Luka will probably be like, I think this is a really controversial pick, but I don't think it'll be controversial next year. I think next year we'll all agree that he's at least a top 5 player. But I'm just gonna go on the limb and say that he has won already. So number 3 is Kawhi Leonard. He was 2, but he gets bumped down obviously because of what happened in the in the semi conference finals in the West. Yeah, Western semis going out down 3-1, and you being the reason why your team loses. No, I can't give you top 2. Not after a performance like that. Like Kawhi Leonard's still a really good player, but I mean, just that performance, it was so bad. And I think this year has proved that Kawhi Leonard is not that guy to really lead, lead a team to a championship as the number one option and all of that. You know what I'm saying? Without having while facing pretty good competition too. Because obviously versus Toronto, he faced when he was with Toronto, he was versus a lot of easy kind of East teams, and he had dudes who had a lot of playoff experience with him. A much better Pascal, a Kyle Lowry who has a lot of playoff experience and can facilitate and create for other guys, and he had a good point guard. On this Clippers team, they kind of expected Kawhi to go out there and be LeBron and just create for people, and that's not really his. It's not really his thing. And so I think that reflected in him getting bounced in the Western semis to a really young Nuggets team. So yeah, I give him number 3. You could push him back to number 4. You could put Giannis here. you could do a lot of things, but I don't think he's a top 2 player. The top 2 players in the league for me are going to be. Well, first let's start with number 2. It's gonna be that nigga AD. Or he's gonna be that nigga AD. Okay, it's Anthony Davis. And I think it's like I don't think he was a top 5 player until this year when he, I feel like in order to be a top 3 guy, you have to be winning. You have to win. You have to win something. And he won this year. AD won. He was the second best player on the championship team. He was the first player in some of the series, or the first best player on the Lakers in some of the series that they played. He was able to go achieve 40 some days. He hit the dagger to really put the Nuggets in the grave in that 2-0 hole, I think. He just had some really big moments. And just in terms of just skill and talent, like don't get me wrong, he's made of glass bones and paper skin, but man, when he's playing at like max capacity without getting hurt and all that, you can't really stop this guy. He's a rebounding machine. He's a mid-range machine, which is crazy. You would not think that Anthony Davis would be this good from the mid-range as he is, but man, oh man, he has a really good mid-range game. Maybe better than Kawhi's. Maybe better than Jimmy Butler's. He has a really good mid-range game. He has a really good inside game. He can catch lobs from anywhere. He can jump from anywhere. He's super athletic. The only really slight to his game that I have is just the fact that he's not that big of a playmaker. In the same regards, like to Kawhi, they're not really playmaking guys. And that's what separates them from the number one player in the world, LeBron James. He can do everything that I've listed and then some. Um, and he's able to create. He's able to create for guys, get everybody involved. He's the best passer in the league. Uh, he can rebound like crazy. He can score like crazy. He dropped a 40-point game in the finals. It's LeBron fucking James. It's LBJ. All right, that's all. Um, that's the list. Seems very controversial, but if you enjoyed the list, if you liked what I had to hear, if you want more controversial opinions, make sure you subscribe. There'll be more like videos like these in the future. I'm also going to do a I'm gonna rank every team like a power. I'm gonna do like a power ranking of every single team that was in the bubble playoffs, and that should be pretty fun. But yeah, if you did enjoy, please leave a like, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.